Storytelling is one of the most valuable skills that any creator can learn. And today we're talking to Trey Phills, who has mastered the art of communicating his story as an athlete to go pro in content creation.
Making myself the underdog, right? Like, I want to see him succeed. I want to stick around to see how his journey, it increases the people that follow you, they want to see more.
Trey has grown to 800,000 plus on TikTok, partners with brands like Gatorade, Spotify, and Under Armour, all while playing basketball professionally and being a founder of a sports tech startup. And in this episode, you will learn what Trey did early on to grow his TikTok presence to 800,000 plus, the steps Trey took to professionalize his creativity into a business, how he positions himself as a creator to partner with big brands in sports, and the ways he applies his skills as a content creator to build his startup, Gymble. Welcome back to New Game Labs, where we help creators in sports level up in business. It's your host, Kirby Porter. I would love to hear your thoughts as you're listening. You can leave us a comment here on YouTube. Now, let's talk with our guest. We kick off our conversation with some hype for season 1. Let's get into it.
Let's give it up, man. I'm excited. Season one. Yeah.
Season 1, let's go. I think what you have done really well on TikTok is you're a great storyteller. And it's something for a lot of creators to take note of, because a lot of people are able to start with trends and get initial virality and following. But in order to build a sustainable career and brand as a creator, you have to build around the things that make you you. And that's what you've been able to do through storytelling. So I'd love for you to take us back to how you got your start on TikTok and how the style has changed over time.
Yeah, this story never gets old, because if you scroll back to my first post, when you see yourself in middle school and you're like, oh, this is so embarrassing. I just said, you know what, it's going to stay up. I'm going to be proud of it. This is my start. So I guess I hopped on the platform 2 or 3 days after the NBA got shut down for COVID. I was in Greensboro with the Swarm, the Hornets G League affiliate, and I was just bored. And one of my friends texted me and was like, yo, this is something that you would be good at, because my personality is just creative. Sending the Snapchats that are overproduced, that sort of thing was just fun to me, but I never posted it. So I just hopped on. I started doing a couple trends. And then what really kind of took off early was stories, but not in the form that you're thinking as far as stories of my life. I was literally making mini fiction series with my sister, because we were both now stuck at home, and it was a way for us to kind of bond. So I'm talking, each episode had millions of views early on, and it was about oh gosh, a time machine, just random stuff, a mirror that was into another portal. So those were the original stories, and they're very entertaining if you do make it back to day one. But yeah, now the stories just look a little bit different. So I'd love to answer some follow-ups on what you mean by that.
Yes. I mean, it speaks to the creativity to be able to come up with those ideas in the first place, and for them to have all those views. And clearly you're able to apply it to things that kind of made you and your brand as a Yale basketball player, as a professional basketball player. And I'd love to maybe talk about the transition then from that initial style of content to a lot of the stuff that you're doing today, where you're talking about your journey and how you made it to the G League and Summer League and playing overseas. Was that ever a active decision, or was it more of an evolution of how your content just grew over time?
Right. I think it was a little bit of an evolution, just because I started posting more sports related content, because that's what I like trick shots and, dunk videos or whatever. The trendy basketball stuff was on my FYP. So I became a creator in that lane as well. And then I got pretty lucky. There was the one that was splash. Now that you know how my eyes be, that OG TikTok sound. I did that with a trick shot. It was back-to-back half-court shots on beat. And that one got 10 million views. And it was just good timing, right place at the right time. A lot of people that was their first impression of creators on TikTok. And I just happened to capture a lot of sports people from that. So I got a lot of followers just from that one video. And I, as someone who wanted to be a Vine star, I realized early, I was like, okay, 100K following seems like a lot. Let me see how I can kind of make this, more sustainable, monetize it, like the whole I made it from videos sort of deal. And I had a call with a girl who worked at YouTube, and she was just very insightful on the creator economy, like very early. So I honestly think I had the whole NIL speech, the whole that sort of sit down. This is what it means to brand yourself as an athlete. I got that in March 2020, so like 2 years before it was even relevant, and that was my playbook. And no one understood it, right? They didn't see the end goal. But I think, yeah. So I hit 100K. I paid like, what was it, $100 for this call to like sit down and it was the best return on investment I could ever get in my life. And then I guess moving forward with that, my first TikTok sponsorship actually was Gatorade, which is like crazy to say. So that was my first impression on like working with a company. I skipped over like a lot of levels, right? Gatorade, that's kind of like a dream. So I guess I was spoiled in the sense that I did not settle for less early on, and that was pretty good.
Shout out to her, honestly, and always investing yourself. That is key. Something interesting here that you have actually encouraged me to do, and I'm finally going to listen, is to pay attention to where platforms are investing and allocate your energy there as a creator early. You told me to get on TikTok probably 2 years ago now. And you told me to start posting reels when Instagram was pushing reels, and to start the Twitter community when Twitter released that feature. Would you be able to speak about that as a creator strategy wise,
Mhm.
how you've been able to kind of capitalize on trends?
Yeah.
I think something like recently too, just to touch on it, is like you started doing a bit more long form content on TikTok, right? As they're, pushing
Hmm.
long form.
Hmm.
What talk to us about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So I guess I was able to get from 0 to 100,000 followers pretty, I wouldn't say easily, but like I studied, like I was on Google. I was like so curious because I got on the app and I was seeing these kids do whatever and go viral. And I'm like, bro, I know I'm more creative. I know I'm more talented than these. And it was really a bet between me and my friend on who could get a million view video first. So that kind of just was another way for me to compete. And I started looking at all of like, I kind of uncovered the key performance indicators for what the TikTok algorithm was early, right? So was it watch time? Was it comments, shares, likes? Was that ratio? Like, when do you know you have a video? And how do you do things in your content to feed into that algorithm to please the algorithm, right? So I guess that has just always been in the Yale kid in me was just appealed to that, right? So that has something that's never left, and you can tell when it shifts. You can tell when things are being picked up. Like right now, for anyone listening, TikTok captions SEO is huge, right? So instead of captioning it something cute, caption it how to or this, and like keywords that you it's like a Google search now. So I'm always just looking at videos that are getting pushed out and listening and asking questions to uncover what I should do moving forward.
I love that. Everything is by design, honestly, and I think it
Yeah.
speaks to the level of intention that goes into like really getting past luck or like a break as a creator to really scaling it and building something sustainable. And before we move to like how you've turned it into something sustainable, I want to touch one more point on the storytelling piece. I think
Mhm.
anytime you go on TikTok, there's a lot of people that educate on the platform of, what worked over there isn't going to work over here. You have to be a great storyteller, but sometimes the advice is received a bit vaguely. And I'd love for you to talk about like what does effective storytelling look like to you as a creator? If you're watching this, like press pause, go watch one of Trey's like storytelling TikToks about like his basketball journey, and you'll see what I mean. But I'd love for you to talk about how you got better at storytelling and what you thought it looked like effectively.
Yeah, press pause, Venmo, New Game Labs for this free game we're about to hand out. No, I think that's a great point. One thing that I did that helped me gain followers once I made the sports pivot is making myself the underdog, right? Like we all love that me versus the world, that kid who wasn't the five-star recruit, rags to riches. However, I use that in a lot. It just comes out in a lot of different ways, but that same thing on like, I want to see him succeed. I want to stick around to see how his journey kind of goes. It increases the people that follow you. They want to see more, and you don't even have to like say follow along. It's just kind of how you frame it. So I guess another way of looking at that notes page 2 is open a curiosity gap at the beginning of your videos. So like if someone does a day in the life, they oftentimes start it with like, I'm in my bathroom. And if you're scrolling, you don't care about someone in their bathroom. But if you have a curiosity gap, right? Like show them a glimpse into what could be the future and then bring it back to like your reality. I hope that makes sense. It kind of just encourages them to be like, like, all right, I'm gonna watch this video. I'm gonna stick around. And I did that with my very first video after that $100 session. I built this video. It was 60 seconds, and it said the beginning of the video said, "This is the story of how I made it to the NBA." I wasn't in the NBA yet, but I knew the factors that were getting pushed out were like completion rate, like that whole circular type of video style. So it started with the end. People watched it and I got, X amount of hate that was like, he's not even in the league yet. Like, but it kind of ended with like if I work hard enough, if I do this, if I do that, you guys will be able to say, or I'll be able to say, this is how I made it to the NBA. And it kind of encourages that circular motion. So, dang, I don't even remember the question. Oh, but I guess that I guess that just resulted in actually Bleacher Report posted that they reshared it on on their Instagram, which was like a IG, and it was like a direct tag, like this is a story worth watching. Like this, keep your eye on this. And I guess I'll say for people that are just trying to learn from that, in order to do that and to benefit from that, you have to be very good at putting your goals out there. And not everybody is ready to do that in public. Not everybody's ready to build in public. I was a very private person before this. I had 1,000 on IG. I didn't really like. I liked my cryptic Twitter, and that was it. Um, but I started letting people in on that, and I still don't love it, but I realize the value that it can bring by being open and vulnerable. And I just think it's worth it. It's like a fair trade off now. So I'm kind of a lot more used to it. But you kind of got to give a lot to receive. A lot of people just want to say, look at the gear, look at this. And that's cool. But like, you got to give. You have to kind of let people learn from your story.
Don't Venmo New Game Labs, Venmo Trey. Because that was that
Nah,
was the masterclass.
free game, yeah.
Listen, it really is such a difference. And like listening to this, I think it's the difference between, if I had to apply what you just said to the marketing of this podcast on TikTok, it's the difference between here's my podcast, go listen to it, versus walking people through the journey of why I'm so passionate about this topic, how I
Mhm.
started the podcast, the behind the scenes of how I built it 0 to 1. And as you were talking, I already know the TikTok I'm going to make. When it's launching, I'm going to share it's launch day, but here's the whole journey that brought us to here. And I have a bunch of behind the scenes footage. So thank you for that.
Yes.
But
And
it,
my
yeah.
bad, before we move on, the caveat to this, right? I've had these perfect videos in my head. I spend 5 hours on them and they flop, right? Like, I'm not saying yours is going to flop, but it's just so important to like realize you're going to be pouring your heart, your creativity into this for other people's consumption and other people's judgment. You got to have tough skin because sometimes it's just the algorithm, right? Like sometimes you post an hour too late. Like who really knows? And you can't take that as like oh, the world is not rocking with Kirby Porter. The world's not rocking with me because I poured my heart out and they didn't receive it right. Sometimes it's just out of your control, but you have to like keep waking up and do it again and again. And you're going to get lucky, right? A number of times if you
Mhm.
keep showing up. So I think that's just
Absolutely.
an important like back end thing to realize. You can do everything right and it still might not be the results that you want.
Absolutely. And I think the drop off is like when people decide to continue or not after immediate or a lack of immediate results. And
Hmm.
that's where a lot of people that build sustainable careers out of being a creator differentiate. And I'd love to now move on to like what you touched on earlier about realizing you had something going and thinking about how can I make it sustainable? How can I monetize this? And the first brand that you work with is Gatorade. So my question was going to be, when did you realize there was a business opportunity? But probably really early on. So maybe a better question is like, how did you turn it into a business beyond that first point with Gatorade?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. This is a quote. It might be Lil Uzi, and I don't want to mess it up, but he said, "I got paid because I'm on time." And like I just see it. There's so many people that kind of, I don't know, they don't take it as serious. They don't take content as like as serious as showing up for practice, right? To all the athletes out here, the extra hours you put in, like all that. Like you have to be a pro. And actually, that's what people started saying, like, yo, you're a pro at this. And I was like, what? No, I just really want to make it. Like I refuse to get in my way of getting to that next level. So all the like I started, okay, practical advice here. I'm rambling. Um, Practical advice is I created a separate email account and put that in my bio. Phils.management at Gmail. Please do not email this unless it's related to social media business. But I did that and I put it in my bio. Who was running it? Me. And I actually had a friend who was Yale women's basketball that was helping me out early. She stopped helping me out. I was still responding to emails as Alexandra, and I had like this multiple personality. But I guess all I'm saying is like take it like very serious. Like do the things that you would do for work and stuff. Like content is fun, but you still have to have these structures that exist in other verticals. Sports business, like it's the same exact thing. So set it up as if it's a business. And I feel like, I mean, unless you haven't been in the world business wise, I feel like it's pretty self explanatory on the things and the way you have to carry yourself. So when you're interacting with a Gatorade, you are, meeting deadlines and you're responding to these emails right away. I actually almost missed this Gatorade email. My very first one, I almost missed it because I just wasn't checking my inbox. And I was like, never again am I going to fumble that bad. So just treating it like school, treating it like assignments, like it's the exact same thing. And those over time lead to more opportunity. There's no secrets.
Absolutely. I think just even that little example of setting up a email as if you have a full management team behind you, like that's, I mean, it goes a long way, right? Because one, it helps with interactions with brands. It helps you really take it seriously. So it's like, how can you implement little actions around the brand that you're creating, whether it's setting up an official website or having a separate email or having a
Mm,
Calendly booking, right? Like operate it as if it is a business, and you'll start to attract those type of opportunities and be ready for when you do scale instead of like being reactive to progress. Would you be able to give another example of another system or learning or I guess action item that you had to do that was different from when you were just doing it as a hobby versus when you were treating it as a business?
mhm. Yeah, that's good. Oh, I'd say, hmm, I don't think anything, that's tough. I'd really have to sit down and think about that. But the first thing that comes to mind is the way that I get brands to continue working with me, right? So, like, they hit you up the first time. How do you get them to stick around? And what I do is I just make sure I go above and beyond. Like, we're going to use real examples here. We're going to use arbitrary numbers. Let's say a Gatorade is paying me $1,000 to make this content to make them look good. I'm going to invest $300 to $400 into the creation of the video, whether it's paying my friends to help me film it. My first couple Gatorade videos were like OD as far as the production, the time that I put into it, and it just keeps them. It's like, yo, this guy is not just going to prop the phone up and say drink Gatorade. Like he's going to invest back into. And when you realize that these people that work at the agencies also want to be good employees, right? If they source the creator, they want the creator to make them look good for sourcing it. So it's like you're helping everyone wins when you take it like serious and invest in yourself and put out the highest level content. And I think that's helped me just have good relationships with the brands that I do. So that's not really practical, but it's just like realize the level of opportunity that you can get from, these outreach. It's not just like check the box. Okay, they worked with me, great. It's like you want that relationship piece, which is also a business and athletics. Like that's nothing new. So
Absolutely. I think that's so interesting that like you reinvested the money from the deal back into the business and not just taking it home, which I think speaks a lot to the long term vision that you had for what you could do with your TikTok presence and beyond that too. It's not
mhm.
just the short term. I collaborated. Okay, great. Bye. It really is a matter of like making the people that you work with look great, and then also over delivering because it just brings more opportunities, more referrals. And so anyone listening to this, like think long term with the types of opportunities that you're getting, not just the first transaction, because the bigger opportunities are on the other side of like the first deal, basically. So that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Now, I would love to actually take a step back and think about during this period where you're starting to work with more brands. You touched on it earlier with Bleacher Report sharing the content that you made for yourself that shares your story. You're kind of like creating your own press as an athlete during this time, and you're starting to work with brands. Did you feel like a lot of these opportunities that you got with brands were more about you being an athlete, or more about your skills as a creator, or was it a great combination of both?
Yeah, I think it was a great combination of both. Just realizing that these brands have a target audience they're trying to reach. So the better you are as a creator, the better relationship you have with your target audience, you know how to make effective content for them. So if a brand comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm interested in working with you for the purpose of marketing this or that," I should have authority over like what my audience is going to appeal to. Like so the better you are as a creator, like it just I don't know there, but there's a lot of synergies. I hope that wasn't like too ambiguous. So it's like yeah, it's all related. Just know your audience, and then me knowing myself. All right, I went to a small school. I like have these type of kids, right? Like who am I appealing to? Then I can go to a Gatorade. We're giving them all this free promo. I'm about to send them an invoice. um, we can we can have better they have more trust with me as far as like the campaign and like the messaging behind it, and it's just like yeah, it's just building trust based off of your expertise.
Now, beyond, I guess, the initial phase of working with brands, how do you think about long term as a creator where you can take things? Have you thought through like a roadmap of like, okay, like I started with TikTok, but this is just the beginning. And I ask because I think it is important for other creators to hear how their fellows are thinking long term expansion from
Hmm.
initial social media success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that depends on your why for sure. We didn't even talk about that from the jump. It was cool
Talk
making
about
the
it.
fun. Yeah, it was cool making the funny videos and stuff. And like, there was a day that there was like a trend on TikTok, and it was kind of thirst trappy, right? It was one of those like light skins be like sort of trends. And I remember making one, and I was like, I didn't like it did well, it performed well, but I was like, okay, it was a clear like fork in the road. Do I want to be TikTok famous and do I want to shake my hips? That'd probably pay a lot, but it was like, what do I want to do in life? And I kind of just built it around. So my why is just like showing these young kids that success in the NBA is not the only version of success. So as a result, the content that I post is going to give glimpses into me doing other things at a high level. So I'm excited to like continue to do that in the future. And I think that is more important than like what platform should I use, or what is like the why kind of helps you figure out what you're going to say first, because the platforms will evolve, right? Like YouTube Shorts just launched, 1 or 2 years ago. I'm not sure how that's going to look, but it's just things that are going to be they're going to be competing. And you can be the same version of yourself on all these platforms. It just changes like the type of form of content a little bit.
Absolutely. I think that's very important. And it also helps you stay grounded as things are
Oh,
constantly
might have lost you
changing. New
here.
platforms are coming at you, new opportunities to monetize. You will always be like a pinball bouncing between different things if you don't have very firm grounding on what am I trying to accomplish, and also not fall into comparison traps, which I think is like very easy and unfortunate for a lot of creators. So it's helpful to hear you say that. um, Now I am super interested in this like other lane that you're playing as a founder, which I think speaks to this broader trend that we're seeing of creators becoming founders, whether it's lifestyle businesses or venture scale startups. We're seeing a lot of them realize like, hey, I've built this really engaged, powerful audience, and this is a great launch pad for a business that I could start where it can leverage the audience that I have. I can use my skill sets, and you're stepping into that as the founder of a co-founder, excuse me, of Gymble.
Mhm.
And I'd love to hear one, like how Gymble came to be as the origin story, and then we'll get into what it's been like as a creator.
Yeah, the origin story, man. So my first pro season, the one that was cut short by COVID, which led me to get on TikTok. There was a period in that season where I was waived by the Windy City Bulls, the Chicago Bulls organization. So I was waived, and I was back home in Charlotte, and it was like November, maybe late November, like winter, deep winter. And I was just back home and I was training, but my access to my local high school wasn't as high because they had, wrestling basketball season. So I had to find other local athletic spaces to train at and stay ready to get re-signed before the end of the year. And I was just making a bunch of observations about like these business owners, how they were running their back office, what were their goals with reaching the community. And there was a lot of similarities and there was a lot of frustrations with their current software, or just a lot of inefficiencies with like the way they run their business. And it goes back to like the whole thing we were just talking about, missing text messages. I'm trying to like rent a facility, I'm trying to book with a trainer, and I'm like, yo, like we're playing this dance and it's not helping either of us. Why can't we like clean this process up? So I just joked around and I was like, hey, I'm gonna build a well, not build, but like I'm going to figure out how to make an app that can fix this for me in Charlotte, because I knew it was a very Charlotte athlete problem. uh, so I literally, in one of my off time periods, I just went on Google and said, "How do you make an app?" Right, and then you just learn like what is wireframing, what is like all this, what do I need? Then I looped in my co-founding team, and we just kept showing up every day. But to answer your question on how that kind of relates into the creator founder, well, for one, it's not sweet out here. It is not sweet, man. It's like I picked the hardest things to do right at the same time. It's just like, and then add basketball to that equation. It's crazy. But I think I knew. Okay, we'll continue to speak on like the creating stuff after COVID was over and there was a return to the real world. I knew I couldn't make these long form series with my sister in the backyard. In like any time, as soon as it was time to like leave the house, I was like, all right, I love you, but like that's not sustainable. So I was like, what spaces will I be in? What does my actual life look like? And where is the easiest way to create content? Because I don't want to have to leave the gym to go make a TikTok. Well, where is the ability to make a TikTok at the gym? Because I'm going to be at the gym twice a day, every day, on weekends. Like, so similar to that is how I leaned into this business idea with Gymble. I know for the rest of my life, I'm going to be in athletic and fitness spaces of all sports. So I was like, okay, I can kind of walk this along my career. In the different places that I go, I can kind of, start to get organic traction. So that really appealed to me because there was a lot of synergy. And I just really believe we need to have that in order to like leverage your networks because the world is small. I guess I hope that answers the question.
It does. And I also think it touches on an important point of operating in your zone of excellence and executing on things that are unique to you, because that's how you really break through, whether you're a creator or you're a founder and you've found those synergies. now as you're like building your personal brand, operating in the environments that you're naturally in, and then also building a business around those things too. And I'm curious to hear how you have found, or maybe not found, similarities between being like a CEO of your brand and being a founder of a business.
Hmm.
How has that been?
Yeah. Um, that's a good question. Immediately, what came to mind is just like the relationship between the value you bring to the world and what you're trying to take from the world, right? Like we all want to build a tech unicorn, or like we all want to get something, but it's just always important to remember like how much value are you actually bringing. I think it's very reciprocal. And I'm not saying you need to just give to get, but like it just always centers me, it grounds me to remember like why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this because I sat there and I was like, oh, this is going to be $1 billion business. I did this because I was frustrated and I wanted to like help solve the issue on both sides of this like marketplace. So that's like the similarity. You have to be very like humble, and you have to kind of embrace the ups and downs. Let's say it's a 1 million view video or it's 1,000 view video. If you call me after the 1 million view video, best believe I'm gonna be smiling. I'm hey, how you doing? Like fresh cut type of energy. But like that sort of thing exists in both the startup world and as a creator. And like you said, you can't compare. You can't look at who else has raised what at what timeline. It's just you have to just be a value add person. Just be solid. And I know that's not like it's not the most practical stuff, but like that's just how I view it in my head. Just show up, be solid, add value to other people, and it comes back in ways you didn't expect. And both with business and the creator journey, I've connected with people that I'm like, wow, this whole thing is like this is what kind of I envision my life to be about, regardless of like the job status. So it's cool.
I love that. There are definitely many similarities between being a creator and like being a startup founder. And I would say the biggest one is like the highs and lows of it too. I would say being a
Hmm.
creator, it's just more on display and visible. Like immediately you see if something is performing well or not. And then as a founder, it's those customer interactions, it's fundraising, it's unexpected surprises, you name it. And I definitely believe that being a creator builds the mental fortitude that it takes to eventually be a startup founder if that's the path that you choose. Um, your role at the startup is, well, it's many hats because we know early stage startups,
Yeah.
it is not just one job,
Yeah.
but part of it is marketing, right?
Mhm.
And can you talk about what does that role look like as, CMO or leading brand at a
Mhm.
startup? And how do you see your skills as a creator applying to developing in that role?
Yeah, absolutely. This is pretty popular rhetoric that's floating around Twitter right now that like and we see it like with an Elon or just like a founder who has that personal aspect to it. They're not just, the business. They have a life and they have interests and they have a way they see the world. And the vehicle they use that is through their startup. So I think it's important to maintain my brand just so that it's a sports demographic, which I can touch on why it's, so has been great for us. So I just have to, find that balance between like uh, this is what I do on the side, but like make that a funnel to my startup. I don't want it to be like super commercial, but it's something that's on the back of my head. On the Gymble side, as CMO and co-founder, I'm really, really excited to get to the point where I'm wearing a few less hats and I can focus on the creative parts and the marketing and the actual content. Because at the end of the day, that's why I hopped on TikTok. I love making stuff. I've got 1 million drafts for Gymble Super Bowl commercials and stuff, like just sitting in the clip. And, we're almost at that time to be a little bit more public facing. And I guess one thing I've learned from being a creator, and it's helpful, is how to spend our marketing budget, for Gymble. I've received a lot of dollars from brands where I'm like, are you sure you want to pay? Like, are you sure? Like, okay, so it feels like you're burning money because, they're just excited to throw their dollars at the hottest thing and the shiniest thing. And they don't truly understand like how, to leverage good content. So I'm excited to like really lean into that role, and just be a low cost, effective content creator. And the example that I'll use, I've only made like 2 posts on my personal account about Gymble, like that were call to actiony, like specifically, if you follow me, you might see it on the side. But I made 2 posts, and the first one that I did, it generated like 2,000 downloads in 48 hours across the world, business interest across the world, right? Like Europe, Canada, North America. It was good because people were downloading it, but it was bad because people were like, there's no Jimble spots in Michigan. This app sucks. Like, I'm like, all right. Like, so I think it is a very low, if you have a brand, right? If you have a good brand that has a synergy to your startup, you can literally be free promotion for your startup, and it's not going to feel super like fake. It's just going to be, example of this is like Emma Chamberlain talked about coffee on YouTube. So of course she starts a coffee brand, and she drinks coffee every day, right? What spaces is she in? So now she opens her drawer on when it's time to vlog, and there's Chamberlain coffee just right there. So as someone who, as a creator, loves fitness and athletics, loves new experiences, I will be using Gymble as just a part of my regular life and speaking on it and being in those spaces where I can shout out these community fitness spaces, trainers, athletic venues, all that, all in one package. So it's cool.
I just want to repeat something that you said. You made one video for your social media and it generated 2,000 downloads for your app. And that is huge. And that is something that a lot of early stage startups would pay a lot of money for, because a lot of them, when you're really early, it's like, it's products and like marketing and like PR and media is kind of like the afterthought, but you have it in reverse where you have the audience. And now it's kind of like leveraging what you already have and crafting like real time feedback from your audience too, which is a huge, huge, huge advantage. So I think that's something really interesting for creators that are starting startups to think about, or just, I mean, a lot of startups already know this and already partner with creators, but just that natural advantage of someone having the brand be like a part of their ecosystem where it feels very natural. You brought up
Yeah.
Emma Chamberlain. Are there any other creators or examples that you think about that are kind of like a model for where you see this like multi hyphenate path for you evolving to, where you're a
Mm,
creator, you do all these things and you have a business, maybe you have other things. Like, are there
right.
any other examples that stand out to you?
Um, Logan Paul, you can feel how you want about him. He's so much more. He has a lot more depth than people give him. So he has a sports drink called Prime, I believe, and I think he's done a great job of like bouncing around, but still capturing all of that and funneling it back to the brand that is Logan Paul. Also, Mr. Beast, biggest YouTuber on the platform, he's getting into retail restaurants. When your following's that big, you can do burger pop up shops. So, like his first grand opening, they sold 6,000 burgers in one day, which is the world record for most burgers sold by a burger thing in the world. So yeah, I'd say those are like top tier examples. As far as myself and like what I'm striving to, I need to do a little bit more whiteboarding on it. It's like right now I'm going a million miles an hour, and I have that deep down vision, but as far as practical steps getting there, uh, I'm gonna keep it tight lipped. I got some ideas, but yeah, those are 2 good examples though.
No, I love those examples. The two of them, I think right now it's definitely such a boom in like actual case studies of people that are doing it. I think Dude Perfect is another example.
Hmm.
Issa Rae is another example. I think I brought her up every episode by this point, but like there's so many examples of people that have started around a passion on a platform and have expanded that passion into different things and different ventures. But I think what differentiates the standouts, and what you've hit on a couple times now, is that they funnel it back to like an ecosystem of their personal brand, so it doesn't feel disjointed and that they're doing a million things. It's just all kind of like the business of you, basically, which is really
Exactly.
interesting. It's very
Exactly.
interesting. think the last interesting part of this like tie from creator to being a startup founder is the fundraising aspect of it. And so much of fundraising is storytelling. How have you thought about crafting the story of Gymble, and how have your storytelling skills helped you with that? Because you did it when you were making these like crazy skits, you did it with your personal brand, and now you get to do it with a company. How have you been testing with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said a little bit earlier, it's almost time to be full throttle with the marketing. So I'm trying to find the words here. But one thing that I thought of while I was planning this stuff again is like value. I don't care. Like, it sounds so cliche, but like, I don't care about selling this product to, that's not my first thing. If you can do things, for example, we've onboarded these businesses. We had 60 businesses on our beta platform in 2021. And the commonalities between them, they were all trying to like be better in this new world of social media. They were like, I just know how to train. I just want to run my business. But like we see that world and we're trying so hard to like bridge the gap between my operations and the immense amount of eyes and flow that's going on. It's like they're missing out on that world. So I'm trying to come up with verticals that like really help them, like actually add value. And then of course the software is the byproduct of that value that we're creating for them. So, um, and then you mix in your campaigns but that's like just everybody says that. So, yeah, I'm just trying to find the best ways to make content that can speak to a bunch of people. And I've done that with my personal brand. You don't have to play basketball to get some lessons from my videos. So I'm going to just lean into that. That's what this last month and probably the top of January is going to be for. And then we just hit the ground running and you iterate, and all the stuff that we've said in the first 40 minutes, you just apply those same principles.
Yep, absolutely. I am so excited to like see next year how it all just comes together and how you continue to like create this like section of your personal brand that's Gymble, but knowing how much growth it's going to naturally drive for the business will be just a really great case study, I feel like, for creator founded brands. So let's wrap up with advice rapid fire. These are basically notes to your younger self, knowing what you know now. You have all this wealth of knowledge, all this experience, and look back at yourself when you were at these different stages. What would you tell yourself? So the first one is, what advice would you give to yourself when you were starting on TikTok?
Stop comparing yourself to these other people. You're going to get exactly where you want to be. Like, just, I think I've said it, just keep showing up, post every day. It's more important to post every day than to have, a huge video as a one off.
Yes, tell that to the people with analysis paralysis, me.
It
um,
happens.
it happens. It happens. What advice would you give to yourself when you started working with your first brand, Gatorade?
Closed mouths don't get fed. Like, brands don't have an idea on how interested I was to actually bring ideas to the table. They don't think every creator thinks like that, and everyone doesn't. So they're kind of right. But I speak up early and ask how you can get in to, have a little bit more creative control, and they'll listen to you. And that makes it better for everybody.
It's so important. If you have an idea, put it on someone's radar because one, people are busy. Two, they don't know until you make it very clear. So just favor action.
And,
Okay, last
and
question. What advice would you give to yourself when you were building the first business plan for Gymble?
wow, wow. The first business plan. Nah, that one I just say get out into the real world and run it by your potential customers. People don't like people get stuck in their head that they have the perfect business idea, and it's like how many people have you spoke to? Two. Like make it 20, make it 100, and you'll have a better plan moving forward. Um,
Absolutely.
and
Get
then
out get
lastly,
out
I
oh,
want to
yes.
change my first answer.
Yes.
I recently heard it and it stuck with me is don't change your message. Uh, don't try and cater your message to who you think is in the audience. Like say what you want to say because you don't know how that audience is going to respond to what you said. So I think that's a good one.
I like that. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Trey. This was a great lesson on one, storytelling, like storytelling masterclass for sure. Two, how to evolve what you build as a creator into one, different skill sets as an entrepreneur for your personal brand. But really, the big opportunity is applying everything into a business, whether it's a lifestyle business or a startup like you're doing. I think you are really at the forefront of this creator driven startup wave. So I'm excited for this year because like we'll just start to see how you're tying it together and how the marketing for Gymble is really going to take off. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, man. Keep it simple. Book with Gymble, man.
Keep
That's
it.
right.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good. I like
yeah,
that. We'll clip this
yeah.
up.